good to be here.
I'm so excited what we just did in the sauna. We just did the sauna in the cold, had some great conversations, and just dropped in, which is my favorite thing to do with all podcast guests, but you especially, because I felt from the very first time that I met you that there was a kinship, and it was around a shared health struggle, which we're going to talk about. I mean, mine obviously is like a weight gain issue, and I've been really honest with our community, so everybody knows, nothing to hide. But for yourself, man, people look at you and they're like, wow, he's the leader of a company, he's an entrepreneur, he's in good shape. That was not always the case.
Yeah.
And there's a direct correlation with hair minerals and with minerals in the body, which we're going to talk about today. Dude, for people that don't know, tell us about your company. If you're in an elevator and maybe somebody was like, hey, I see that there's something to do with minerals, and Upgraded Labs is your company.
Upgraded Formulas.
Upgraded Formulas.
Yeah.
So tell us about Upgraded Formulas and hair minerals and the analysis if somebody has no idea. We'll go into depth, but just give us like the skinny.
The skinny is we help you, or wouldn't it be cool if you could know what you were missing and be able to absorb those nutrients? I thought that should be a thing. So now we as a company have this approach, and it's really impactful because, as a lot of people know, the absorption of both food and supplements is not great, and there's a lot of nutrient deficiencies in the soil, and it's getting worse. So instead of turning a blind eye to it, my approach was, let's go headlong into this, and really find a solution. So yeah, that's what we've done, and we have a special approach that really I think is fundamental no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, I went through it myself, which is awesome. It's my favorite thing to do is like be in N=1, but like truly go through it, and really actually understand what a company has to offer before we hold a conversation and share it with the world. And oh my God, the amount of depth that you and your team go into. I mean, first of all, I didn't even know really what hair mineral analysis tested for, which is a lot of things. How many total things can you actually get from mineral analysis for hair? How many total things can you get?
Like 63.
63 things. And these are all markers that directly impact human health. So, let's pull the e-brake, man, because for yourself, I know you got into this because of your own journey, which we shared down here at Barton Springs, which was amazing. And when I was listening to you, I was like, wow, he's so put together. Like you're a great speaker. You have a presence to you.
Thank you.
And I thought, okay, this wasn't just God-given. He actually had to work on this. So like, what was the journey and you can start wherever you feel resonates, but what was the journey to heal yourself? What did the universe bring in for you to heal, which eventually led to Upgrade Labs?
Yeah. Upgraded Formulas has been this like just 3 a.m. in the morning sort of realization, like, oh, this is going to be you. So I had been a chemical engineer. I'd been a chemical engineer for a couple of years. I'd gone through life, and like a lot of people listening to this, and pushed really hard from the time I was a kid, just like you. And so I felt like I'd always been hustling, always been in a hurry, just to get to the thing that was going to be the magnum opus type thing. And I don't know for sure that this is it, but this feels like it was the door that I had to go through, if anyone can relate to that. And I didn't know how I was going to solve the problem. I didn't know what it was going to be. But I had developed a lot of deficiencies from this go, from being a wrestler, competing at a really high level in that sport, and, winning a state championship, and, having a father that had been incredibly successful as a coach in that area. So you're just expected to win a state championship, and that came from a good place. I mean, to his benefit, he never, said, "Hey, look, you're worth nothing if you don't win." Or it's just, you're in the environment, you want to win. And it forced me to learn a lot about nutrition really early. That's the reason why I bring that up. I mean, I played other sports. I'd been a quarterback. I played on defense. I knew you played football too. And it's, I mean, as tough as that sport can be, the sole nature of being a wrestler and like being just you out on the mat, you're naked, like if you lose, it's embarrassing, I mean, it's just you out there. And just the hard training, the sweating, the cutting weight, the wrestling at a weight, even if you're not cutting, you're really self-induced hypothyroidism. So anyway, fast forwarding through that, I do that. I get through college. Chemical engineering is tough for anyone. I mean, it's a minor in math, minor in chemistry, like we talked about, and then you have to actually remember that. You can't just memorize it and go on to the next thing. Like a lot of really high level tough curriculums, you actually have to apply it. And our school, I really just picked the first place to give me a full ride and scholarship wise. And so I grew up in Louisiana, and I was always outside hunting, fishing, things like that. And I really just wanted another challenge. Like I could have wrestled in college, but I wanted another, I wanted to be unafraid for the rest of my life of learning anything hard. And I didn't know exactly why else I was choosing it except for that. I was like, oh, it's really hard. Sounds all right. Let's do it. I can sit in the desk for 8 hours a day. It's way easier than practice. So, but all of this led to a lot of nutrient deficiencies. Along the way, I made one of the worst health mistakes I've ever made, which was going to a doctor and talking him into prescribing me Vyvanse, which is a lot, chemically similar to Adderall. And anyway, that culminated with this, with all the deficiencies from wrestling. I mean, when you sweat out like 6 to 8 pounds of water weight, do you ever replenish that? Not really, right?
Especially without knowledge of sodium like you have now. And I even remember when I was in high school, people spitting in cups to cut weight. It's just kind of an unhealthy sport, which you can maybe create some metabolic damage that you might not know about. A lot of athletes probably go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever you have unhealthy athletes and you go, how could it be? It's because they have mineral deficiencies. This whole world, to expand out for a second for people, realize that, this whole planet and the ecosystem this planet is in is made of elements. And what we do in this hair analysis, and I'll talk about why it changed my life and why we lead with it as a company. But when we ignore those elements, why do we think that we can ignore those and still have optimal health? And what I'll say too is that this test really changed my life because I had a great consultation. It wasn't just the test. It was a deep understanding by someone that was a mentor for a little while and retired. He was in his 70s probably when I met him. And, so is that combination, because there's things on it that are counterintuitive. So people will try to read it if they have a science background, medical background, health background, and they will miss a lot of it. Mm-hmm. So I've spent the last 8 years becoming an expert, one of the experts in the world in this one test.
Yeah.
And do I do other tests? Sure. It's not that I don't value blood testing at all, but that if you're not doing this, because the world is an elemental place and we are those elements, you can't ignore it. Like I have friends and I myself spend a lot of money on different biohacking approaches and things. But if I'm not doing this, I'll see, like recently, I'll share my most recent test. I came back, I was high in calcium for the first time in a while. And sure enough, like I can go and validate that with blood work on thyroid and see that the thyroid's not where it needs to be because my calcium level is not where it needs to be. So for the time being, even if foods are quote unquote good for you, if they have high calcium, it's actually going to push me in the opposite direction I want to go in and need to go in. And why is this all important? So if you're not super into health and nutrition, just know that, or just remember that, like, all of this life is energy dependent. And this is something I realized, either really early in life is just how crucial all of our goals, all the things we want to achieve, whether it's you in this new chapter of life as a father, or just, building a company or doing both. I can certainly relate. And when you think of it in those terms, you go, well, what's the equation for energy? And
yes.
Yeah. So
what are the ingredients? What's the formula?
Right.
Which, by the way, it's upgraded formulas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
yeah,
it's upgraded formulas, y'all. It's nothing to do with a lab. I was thinking you're a scientist, because you are. Mm-hmm. You're a scientist and a researcher. So you've spent a lot of time in labs. Mm-hmm. But upgraded formulas, this is the ingredients that you've figured out through your own health journey that we need from a mineral level. Yeah. And the soils are depleted. Yeah. I mean, I've read literature that it's 80 to 90% trace minerals that are not in the soil, that used to be in the soil. So passing it back to you, like, there's a huge frame here for this conversation about minerals specifically, looking at those as nutrients, totally separate from protein, carbs, and fat. Like, this is not a macronutrient conversation. Yeah. This is like the micros that become the macros.
So well said. I gave a talk to KetoCon last year that was micros over macros, is what I called it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I and you're the first person I've heard put it this way, but it's I mean, people obsess about macros, I think, because it's easy to think about. Mm-hmm. And when we step back for a moment and we realize that our food is not, no matter what diet you're currently loving or in love with, or hopefully not having it become part of your identity, but you're getting benefits from whatever diet that is, know that it will change over time, because your nutritional requirements will change over time, because your life will change over time, because your ability to absorb will change over time. So what I realized was, and also to this point, is whatever your macros are, they're only worthwhile based on what they break down to, right? So understanding that, you go, wow, okay. So there's a lot of talk on hormones right now. What are hormones? Like, what are the building blocks of hormones? And I can stand in a room of functional medicine doctors, and a lot of people actually won't be able to answer that. They'll be able to help you correct them, very possibly. But long before you do, hormone replacements and different things like that, why don't we just supply the body with minerals that, for anyone listening, obviously, some people know this, but other people don't. Your body can't make minerals. It has to come, and it usually, in the case of minerals, has to come daily, because you're just not holding on to chromium or magnesium or things like that.
Otherwise known as essential. What you call essential nutrients, essential minerals? How would you describe it?
Essential, yeah, required, fundamental, and so with that, I realized, there's this huge problem that we have, and I had, and I was in my mid-20s when I was discovering this issue, in my mid-30s now, and thinking, all right, well, if I have this issue now, and I was fit and ate a good diet and had good discipline, had good people in my life, was lucky enough to be born in a first world country, and just have all these things that were just advantages, like just lucky enough to be gifted that, right? And to have the good sense to work hard at it and work hard to want to keep it, and also teach other people, hey, this is what I found that works, was I realized I had deficiencies that look like an 80-year-old in poor health. Like, we have 80-year-olds that come to us that are in good health, and their levels still look better than mine did. Wow. I had severe deficiencies, for sure. And what was really troubling, stressful, and angering about it was I had been taking 3 to 5 of these different nutrients for over a year, probably over a year and a half, actually. Most days of the week, like 6 days, I would say, most weeks. Taking, reasonable like RDA amounts, 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium or so. And I was chronically deficient. Not deficient a little bit, but like way, way down.
In the magnesium specifically?
In magnesium, in manganese, in chromium, in potassium, in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And salt as well. And I'm glad that more people are talking about salt. I've been talking about it for a while. And we just don't get enough. A lot of us don't get enough. We've been told for so long that salt is bad. It could cause hypertension. I start to not even mention that because it's so untrue.
Yeah.
What happened there was it was faulty research from what we think it was funded by sugar interests that realized that when you ate less salt, you ate more sugar. I know.
This is the same research behind some of the really, like, I guess you could say, misresearch, misinterpreted, misappropriated doctors that fought to say saturated fat and butter are killing people. And the sugar industry, it's a quick search online. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy theory.
Right. It's a quick search.
It's a quick search. The sugar industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I digress, but I had to mention that because we've explored that on the show, but I had no idea that it also applied to sodium. I thought it was just for the saturated fat.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. So there's that. And then so what I realized was, okay, I had these deficiencies, but I wasn't unique in that. Anyone would have it if I had all those things. I was doing all those things, eating organic, etc. Really being mindful. Even at 25, man, I had already pulled out toxic sugars from my home, all sorts of stuff. And this was 10 years ago. So it was, I remember thinking like, come on, like I'm willing to do the work, but you're not even like, until I did this test, I'd spent $15,000 on other tests, lots of improvement, but nothing moved the needle more than maybe like 10%.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not good enough. Again, back to the energy thing. I was thinking, how am I going to write books? How am I going to live a great life? How am I going to achieve a lot of the goals I have a family, all these things, make an impact, make a dent in the universe if I don't have the energy, So I realized that absorption was really, really key. That was an immediate thought. But when I had that amazing consultation, I realized that he was saying things to me like, Barton, I imagine you haven't remembered your dreams in a while. And I'm going, how do you know that? And he did that 8 or 10 times. And now in consultations, all of our nutritionists that take calls for us walk people through, and they ask that they don't just, say things. They actually listen. They ask questions like these. And they give people these discoveries and realizations. So it's really it's a new lens that you get when you go through a consultation. So it's an important part of what we do. I hopefully will be able to continue to offer that as we grow more and more as a company. But right now we have soon we'll have 6 nutritionists doing that for us. And it's really, really helpful to have someone to talk you through this, because for its value, I think it's the most valuable test when interpreted well.
Yeah.
There's just a lot to it.
The one thing I want to jump in and say is that I had a consultation with one of your practitioners, and it was like this slow, methodical process. And I know we're not able to give medical advice, and of course I have to say that, like, we're not giving medical advice, right? But we are talking about wellness and health best practices. And I always, whenever I take advice from someone in health, I always ask myself on a gut level, would I want the life, or would I want the way of being of the person I'm receiving advice from? And that's definitely the case for you. It's definitely the case from what I've seen with your company and working with the practitioner. And it begs this deep question for me. I'm like, okay, if people that are in great health are giving health advice, not medical advice, but health advice, that for me is like one of the biggest report cards for me to actually trust and see if what they're doing for themselves and what they're sharing with me will actually move my needle and actually help me out in life. So seems like this 70-year-old, was he a physician? Was he an engineer? What was he?
He was like a naturopathic doctor.
He was a naturopath.
Yeah.
And so you felt a connection with him. And so he went actually to like the emotional side of what was being reflected by your mineral deficiencies. That's interesting. He started there.
One of the first things he said to me. Well, and we know too that when you have magnesium deficiency, you don't remember your dreams. You don't make enough melatonin. You don't go deeply enough. And for people that are taking melatonin or taking CBD or smoking weed to go to sleep, all of those are worse options. And ultimately, if you have a magnesium deficiency, you probably don't need those. And here's the thing: the whole absorption thing that I realized, Josh, was that if you have a deficiency, you need a really high level of absorption to reverse that deficiency. You need to be, doing it, daily and taking it in, but you also need consistency, but you also need the tool of better absorption than what I could find. And so, for another year or so, I spent just like, all right, well, maybe I felt like I was already doing good brands, but I'll try other brands. And I'd retest, and the levels wouldn't go anywhere. And that's one way, and one of the reasons why I wanted to keep this test and bring this test and make it more packageable and doable at home. So we have videos, and we've taken it kind of out of the dark ages. And but ultimately, luckily, a couple things. I had entrepreneurs in my family that had worked in or owned and worked in compounding pharmacies, and so my uncle had a compounding pharmacy, and I'd seen he and my first cousin take that and do a lot of novel, innovative things. My whole side of that family is really good at chemistry and had an affinity, and I remember thinking that, plus just my affinity for chemistry and just all the the thermodynamics and all the different things. I was like, this is just I get why I see this so clearly, because I have this nutrition, and I became a nutritionist around that time too. But I I have this lens of athlete and understanding what's required. I was seeing people that were 50s, 60s or so, and seeing they had these issues. And then I had this lens of absorption and knowing oh, well, you take an industrial process and you improve that process with things like nanotechnology, and then you get a better output so that the process does the work for you when the leaky gut, which all of us have to some extent, it seems like, even if you're doing everything well, but you have a lot of stress in your life, that can cause leaky gut. So I knew that relying on our digestive system was just not going to cut it, because I was having those issues in my 20s and I was doing things really well. So the chances that someone would be able to do that better than me at any age really was just low, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough for me. I knew I needed it. I knew if I was going to develop something, I'd have to have the scale of the company to get the products I needed. So about this time, I'm helping my mom with her health too, and she goes through. I just watch her go downhill quickly. I was born to older parents, but she was in good health, and she was in her 60s, and just brilliant, and emotionally just so tapped into, could just walk into a room and sort of know you at a soul level, and borderline telepathy, and I just watched her go from this vivacious, amazing person to just a shell of herself because of medication and surgery. And I still to this day don't think that she had much wrong with her except calcium imbalance. She had heel spurs and things like that. Calcium, when you have too much of it, it'll develop in the body as stiffness and reduced thyroid function, different things like that. So I get to this point where I figured out, okay, so it is there's a few different issues that we have, and that's particle size and stability. I just realized pretty quickly, like, we need to be able to get into the red blood cell and have that transport around the body. So how do we do that without digestion, really? What I was thinking was, if someone didn't have a stomach, or digestive system in general, how would they do this? And that is what we offer today. So we have some secret sauce in our process, and we just do minerals right now. Maybe at some point we'll do vitamins, but minerals I realized were more important. I did a 11-day fast to heal an injury. Just spur of the moment, I'd pulled a hamstring out sprinting at Zilker here in Austin. And I went and sat in cold water that evening, and I couldn't bend, and I dinged up my knee that same day already. So I couldn't bend my knee the next morning. And I remember thinking, that plus this hamstring, it's going to be a nagging injury. And so I did a 3-day fast. I had a big podcast with Ben Greenfield on like 2 days in. I was like, I'll be fasted for that. That'll be good. More clarity. It's great. And I just kept going after that. And I wanted to get to 5. And so I because you get stem cells coming out of bone marrow and healing things. So I'm going to teach a course on how to do that, because I figured out how to do that without pain. But in terms of how vital minerals are, when you have enough body fat and you have sunlight and you have minerals and water, you can fast indefinitely. I mean, the world record, and this was an incredibly obese man, but he fasted for over a year.
Wow. Okay, don't do that, you guys.
No, guys. Yeah. Like,
we're not
that was under supervision for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like, this is just a story. I mean, it's true. You can look it up in like a second, but it's hard to believe. And the skin was not sagging. Like, the body really reconsumed itself. But you need minerals to do that well. They activate minerals, not vitamins, activate the whole enzymatic process. But when you look at minerals under a microscope, what you see really is like rock and metal fragment. So understanding all of this, I went, well, okay. So even if we have solutions, we need to be able, for people to really understand the value of it, they need to be able to look at their levels and see them move from test to test too. Mm-hmm. So, and if they do that, they'll believe in the validity of our products, I think, and they'll be feeling better. But sometimes, some people need to see it on the chart too. And you need that map continually, right? Because it changes. So that's kind of the thought, the philosophy, the why.
It's huge because we're electrical beings. I think it's easy to forget that. We essentially are a battery that's encapsulated in a meat suit. And in a car, people that know my story, I was an automotive technician for 5 years out of high school. So that was my first job. And I remembered when batteries had the wrong saline content, or the plates weren't properly electromagnetized, batteries would go bad.
Not enough water,
excessive heat, excessive cold. These literally drained our batteries. Yeah. And I think about us from a chi perspective, where if I'm going hard, you talked about this in your 20s, you were going hard. You had a background of like improper weight loss from wrestling and lots of sodium loss and maybe some metabolic damage, to which the degree maybe we all have some of that actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Myself, I've lost and gained over 100 pounds, and I know that itself can create metabolic damage as well. So I think about, if we're a battery, then why don't we just learn, which is essentially, I think, what you've done. Why don't we learn how that battery works to perfection, and then put in the ingredients, have the right formula for the battery to literally hold the deepest, most powerful charge. So how would you expand that type of metaphor, from your work?
Well, that's a great metaphor. I completely agree. We are a body that is a battery, that is an electrical field, and I mean, you can measure the voltage is measurable, and it the auric fields, things that we could only intuit in the past, now we can just measure, which is cool.
Well, you said auric field?
Auric, yeah.
Auric field? Mm-hmm. What's the auric field? I've heard of that, but I don't know too much about it.
Just like you're like the aura around a person. is measurable now.
Okay. Maybe similar to Hawkins' work with the frequency scale.
I think so.
Something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The guy that wrote Power versus Force.
Yes.
Yeah. So great book. Very recommend it.
Also, Letting Go.
Letting Go.
One of my all-time favorite books.
Cool.
Yeah, he's got radical wisdom.
You told me about that one, and I have it on my list.
That's right.
Yeah.
So from an emotional lens, he was talking about what you're talking about from a scientific lens.
Yeah, and one of my things that I've said again and again is that nutrition becomes behavior, or nutrition becomes personality, and it's a feedback loop, right? So he's right, I'm right. We're saying the same thing from the the mirror image. I really believe, and we can look at your test results here and see, and everyone has things that they can improve. That's the whole reason why we test.
This is my battery on paper.
Yeah, exactly. This is battery on paper.
I did this because I wanted to be in integrity, and there were some interesting findings.
Yeah.
So I thought, what a cool experience to actually share this with everyone. The 60 plus minerals that are tested, and also the ratios. So let's dive into this, because there's the ratios, there's the amounts, but you were telling me when we were in the sauna, it's actually not smart to just look at singular elements.
Right.
Because if you do that, you could be kind of chasing a rabbit down a hole, but the ratios are the most important thing. So can you expand on the ratios?
Absolutely. And especially as it relates to what you said about batteries, what you said about emotions. So there's a number of different ratios that we could go into. For time's sake today, we won't go into all of it or anything, but we can talk about one ratio, which is sodium to potassium. This is influenced by a number of different minerals in the body. That's the thing. It's not just isolated with these, but there are certain lead dominoes that we look at. And that's part of the reason why we want to look at these ratios. And these ratios represent different things in the body, like adrenal function, thyroid function, your blood sugar to insulin ratio, the hormones in the body, zinc to copper. So, I mentioned this earlier, but the building blocks of hormones, a lot of people can't say what those really are. Those are minerals and amino acids and fats. And mainly like fats, fats and minerals. So when you understand that, you start to go, okay, so which ones should I look at first, and what do I do about it? And what do you do about it really comes in we're not giving advice here, but
I think it sucks that we have to say that
so much.
I know,
God.
But it's like, what do you do when your neighbor's having a health problem and they healed it? You go talk to them.
Yeah.
Right? So that's essentially what we're neighbors right now.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. And so in that case, we could look at zinc to copper. And what's really cool, I think you'll find this fascinating, and I feel confident that people haven't heard this before, is, there's a certain property to zinc and certain property to copper. And zinc is copper's very feminine and zinc's very masculine. Iron is very masculine. It kind of just intuitively makes sense when I say that about iron. People think like Iron Age, like swords, things like that, right? Iron's kind of a more like archaic thing that can lead to a lot of anger too. So I'm not telling people not to eat a lot of red meat, but it's something to be cautious of, because I've seen both people's reactions and how they show up when they eat a lot of meat. And granted, I've gone carnivore for like 10 days straight before, had some good results with it. But all of these things are just tools to serve you, not things to attach to. And you ultimately want to be testing your levels, because again, what is it good for if you don't know to what extent it's breaking down the body? Or maybe your stomach acid's too low and you could be absorbing more of it. So, but when it comes to that, I've seen iron levels be high. I've seen people that eat, I'm not advocating for like plant-based either, but you just want to you want balance, you want to be seeking balance, and you want to be measuring balance, and not just trying to intuit, because your intuition will lead you wrong if you don't support it with data, and it will lead you to better and better places if you support it with data. So you get this nice spiral upward, right? But I've seen people, to just say it straight away, that eat meat all the time, like if they're just, that's the only thing they do, and they are just really tough to be around sometimes, like really angry, or like sort of like fly off the cuff, or be like, very heated, like heated arguments, things like that. That can be difficult for any relationship they're trying to have. So again, what are your, is it just about getting abs? Like, because that can be a good, like that can be an outcome. And is it also good to have a balanced relationship, where you have a little more space between stimulus and response?
Yeah.
Right. And we've talked about this before too. And
so the minerals actually can guide our emotions without us knowing it. So we can start to feel sad, feel depressed, feel angry, feel disconnected. And it can be traced back to these minerals.
Yeah. So for example, zinc is like a more evolved version of iron. It's analytical. And so it's masculine in that way. Copper is very feminine, very creative. Too much of either one, not great. If you have for example, a very high zinc woman, and you have a very high copper guy, and this is, by the way, not a life sentence. This is this can change in 90 days or less. This can change in 30 days. This can change really quickly if you have copper pipes, and you're like suddenly ingesting a lot of cacao and a lot of foods rich in copper, avocado, etc. People can look up a list of foods high in blank. But again, the soil is depleted, so you never really know. We're third-party testing every batch for purity and potency, so we know hey, it's going to have this much copper, it's going to have this much zinc, and I've put some blends together as well. But when you have, let's say, a woman that's very high zinc and a guy that's high copper, you have a guy that, when we're looking at traditional roles, for example, of polarity, that's opposite, right? That's, so maybe they started out opposite, where he was high zinc, or just maybe they were both pretty balanced, and then they, started changing their diets and things, and now they're this other end of the spectrum. Polarity's going to go because hormones are going. Those two elements dictate levels of, measurable serum levels in the blood of zinc, progesterone. Zinc is dictating progesterone, testosterone. Copper is dictating estrogen.
When you say dictating, what's the relationship here? Because I know about hormone imbalance, and in functional medicine, there's a term called the pregnenolone steal, which is like the master hormone, and then everything's built from there. Right. So what is the relationship of the minerals, like you've been discussing, to the hormones themselves? Because they're radically different. And I think people get hormones and minerals confused. I've seen that happen. So if you were to look at it on a triangle for a metaphor, would the hormones be above or below the minerals, or is it more of a feedback loop?
It's a feedback loop. Yeah. It would be like 2D, and then a feedback of minerals producing hormones. So you can't reduce adequate levels of any of it without those minerals.
Okay.
Yeah. So to that extent, you're influencing because you're putting more into the system. So you're dictating the output, or dictating the input, and measuring the output. And so that's one thing that we can look at, and you're in good standing there, ratio wise, which is great. Like you're a little above ideal and if you want to skew one way, it's this way, where you're more zinc, you're higher zinc than you are copper as a guy.
Which means that emotionally I would be
a little more analytical than like ungrounded creative, which would be low.
Okay.
But if you're individually really high in copper, then that wouldn't be great. So, in these particular results, I actually would have you supplementing both zinc and copper though, because you can improve, like you're a little low on both of them, but again, ratios matter more than individuals.
Okay.
So that's, and then, again, it's going to change from, every 60 to 90 days. So, because you're changing the inputs to the system. So there's that. And then it's different for you in terms of intake. How often are you supplementing? What are your levels to start with? What are the other environmental things, life things you have going on? The other one that there's a couple. We can talk about one that's very much a thyroid ratio that you have. And then there's two different ways we look at adrenals. The one that we talked about a bit in the sauna earlier was sodium to potassium. So right now, although your sodium to potassium shows low, I would have you increasing your salt intake, and that will actually build emotional resilience. So as the whole nutrition becoming personality thing that I was saying, that's a great example, because for it to stay where it is right now, 1.05, anything below a 1.4, I mean, it's like, that's the kind of red zone where you can, and the good news is that you can, just by increasing salt, like just salting your water, teaspoon in the morning, with 20, 30 ounces of water, that before you have any sort of stimulant or anything. Mm-hmm. And then another teaspoon spread throughout the day. And this is good quality salt, obviously. And then salting your food as much as you want. And then if you're still craving salt, have more, because the body has a self, versus sugar, for example. We can eat sugar till like the cows come home, so to speak, right? But the body, like I tell people, like try to eat too much salt for just one day. Just try to eat too much salt, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Your body will stop you at some point.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God.
You're like, I'm done.
I'm done. You take one bite of something that's too salty and you stop. When has that ever happened with sugar?
Yeah, there's pretty much never.
There's a self-regulating sort of thing. So food scientists look at food, and their job is to make food addictive. So they'll dial up sugar, they'll dial up fat, they'll dial up, just these different triggers.
This is what's known as the bliss point. These food scientists that, thankfully you exist and your company exists, because people's palates and people's homeostasis is really knocked out of whack. Like it's off center.
Yeah.
So we crave the wrong type of foods, not because our body's craving them, but because our mind is craving them, which is a huge differentiator. These scientists get paid hundreds of millions of dollars. Man. Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, McDonald's actually, with their CCK hormone that they inject into all their food. Just enough sugar, just enough salt, the bliss point. It's why Dr. Pepper's recipe is like held in a safe somewhere, because they spent millions of dollars figuring out how to addict people. So it's a massive conversation that we can't get too deep into now.
Right.
But sure. Lauren's going to link a few shows right here if you guys want to learn about that bliss point. But you guys can heal that. You can help to support the healing of that and bring people more back to homeostasis, more back to center.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Because when you get your sodium and potassium levels, which, you also need to increase your potassium levels too. Like, I want you to take in basically as much potassium as you can get. To put it in perspective, if you ate 10 bananas, you would get to your potassium level in a day. Anyone, right? In a day, and that would be one day, and you'd have to do it the next day.
10 bananas.
So supplementing potassium is something that really just most people should be doing. 2% of people get enough potassium. That's another way to say it. On a daily basis. 2%.
I mean, the overarching question that I think definitely someone's feeling is, when we look at testing, when we look at supplementation for minerals, why can't we just get it from the food? Like, that's a pretty big resounding gong question. Sure. That's the big question, right?
Right.
Obviously, your company, your mission wouldn't exist if we could just get it from the food. So what are the things that block us from getting the potassium, the sodium, the minerals from the food? Like, what's going on with the food?
There's multiple things at play. One, the soil is depleted. You talked about that earlier. Conservatively, in the last 60 to 80 years, we have 40% less in our steak and our salad and our sweet potato, all of it. That's just kind of across the board. And you know that's true because you can go out and physically measure around the world the topsoil. And you know that is a problem that we have to solve, and we need to be giving birth to innovators. And instead, we're giving birth to children that have lower IQs because mom has lower and lower levels of these minerals to give her child. And when mom has low levels of iodine, for example, you get a child that has up to a 20-point lower IQ. Iodine is that important for brain development in children. So that's just one. Now, in a study of 6,000 people, 96% were seen to be deficient in iodine. So we have that tells me a couple things. Well, one, in the study, the other thing you have to know is that some people said they were currently taking iodine supplementation, right? And they still 96% were deficient. I have a lot of problems with the RDA in this country. RDA for people is like how much you should take in of a certain mineral each day. It's a recommended. Now, I don't know if the same people that influence the sugar and salt hypertension stuff influence RDA, but I think that'd be a great idea if they were that malicious.
Yeah.
So what I'm really saying is it's really low in the case of iodine, and it's really low in the case of a couple different things. But iodine certainly, for example, Japan, way healthier, longest lifespan of any developed country or of any country. They eat not like 2 times more iodine. I'm not sure what their RDA is actually. I should look that up. But what I can tell you is how much they consume on a daily basis, which is about 100 times more iodine than we do in the U.S.
From seafood or?
Yeah, from mainly from sea vegetables.
Sea vegetables.
Now, the problem is with sea vegetables, they're hard to find here in the U.S. Well, it's a long way to transport. And wherever you're growing them, they're likely to have heavy metals. So what do? Again, I go back to, all right, well, if I'm going to do this every day, I want a third party test every batch and make sure that it has a large amount. So we have about half of that dose. So 5 milligrams is a large dose in our iodine. And it's a dropper, so people can decide, all right, I want less, maybe intuitively, maybe they sway test, maybe they want to do a smaller amount. But everyone, even if you're in the hyperthyroid, my personal belief, because that mineral is needed to produce thyroid hormone, it's one of the building blocks of, then you still need thyroid hormone throughout every day, even if you're on the high end of the scale. So, and it'll help you get over cold sensitivity over time. It might take a year to rebuild, but hey, you're doing it. Anyway, so that was kind of a tangent, but a lot of good things to talk about there.
Yeah.
So nutrition becoming personality, below a certain level for this particular ratio of sodium to potassium, you can guarantee emotional disturbance. So that may come off as just like mood swings. For other people that have done as much work as you have, maybe they'll just come off as like lethargy or different things like that. But this ratio also points to just adrenal fatigue too at this level, which is super common when you're a dad and you have a company and you're willing to like put it all on the line all the time. So, and I know that's the case for you. So, and that's awesome. It just means that you're like a race car. We can't just put normal fuel in normal amounts. We need to increase the amounts, and we need better absorption.
I'm definitely feeling that lately, and that's why I wanted you to talk about the ratio. So you talked about the sodium, potassium. You talked about, I think it was copper and zinc, those two. Is there one more that everyone should be aware of? I mean, I know there's many, but what's one more that we should be aware of just from my test?
There's many. From your test, the calcium to potassium level is low, which actually shows like thyroid function is the thyroid's trying to put out a lot of hormones.
Yeah.
And really we're kind of like redlining is the thyroid right now, is what we're showing, which is okay. We've had plenty of people be there. And individually the calcium levels is pretty good. The potassium level, shows high because the body's recirculating it, but it's really, what in this particular case, we actually want to increase potassium levels. That's counterintuitive. This is the reason why I've put out a course. A lot of practitioners have asked for it for a couple of years, and we have a course now that people can go through and get certified in this test.
Where do they go? We'll put this in the notes.
Sure.
Where do they go for that course? Because today we're doing like a tip of the iceberg. I mean, people are going to get a lot of intelligence here.
Sure.
But the deeper dive for if you work with clients, if you're a functional med practitioner, or even if you're just on a health journey yourself, like you're going to want to go do this program. So where do they go to get the program?
Sure. The program's on the website, and that's upgradedformulas.com. It's a course.
Okay.
And yeah, people, if you're really interested in your health, you can do the test and consultation. That's a great place to start. It's very affordable. I recommend doing it 4 times a year. And we have subscription options. The test, the course itself is something that health coaches, different people that have clients can certainly do and make their money back on. And I really wish for every functional medicine doctor, every nutritionist, health coach, etc., to do the course to really see that, because one of my missions is to change healthcare by actually making it healthcare, and looking at the only way we can really do that is with good tests and with the appropriate supplements that really absorb well.
I feel like in your lane, in your category, when I did a scour on the browser and I really looked at who was doing the testing, your company continued to pop up at the top. And I think about like health being sometimes for some people, Barton, it can be overwhelming at times. Yeah. So that's why, with this podcast, we are in the process of finding the most trustable, highest level experts in each category. So like for nutrition, for glucose monitoring, for mineral testing, what is it specifically about the hair? Because one of the coolest things with your test is like, you pull out the hair from the head. The hair in the head is longest. That's the optimal hair. But I actually did some pubic hair. I did some armpit hair. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do that. I don't know. I wasn't perfect on the test, but sure. The test is easy to take.
But you got it in.
I got it in.
That's great.
I got it in. But why not the blood? Why not the saliva? I know with saliva is where we measure cortisol, with the different 3 tests in a day. Blood is where we get our lipid information, things like that. But what is so special about the hair and why the true measurement of minerals can be found there?
Yeah, so really, really good question. I'm glad you asked that. So we look at minerals, and we haven't really talked about heavy metals, but we look at heavy metals too. I know you mentioned arsenic earlier.
I had arsenic.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So there's that, and when it comes to heavy metals, that's a layer thing. So as you get healthier, your body will store heavy metals for years and years and years. So even back 10 years ago, if you had exposure, body might siphon that away because it wasn't safe enough then to detoxify. It would have overwhelmed the system. Our bodies are so incredibly innately intelligent that they know, like, hey, now's not a good time. And also, as you get healthier, you'll see some of these heavy metals kind of peeling onion type thing. It starts to unravel, and that starts to come out more and more. But right now, we're seeing that, which could be CBD, could be, there's a lot of different things. Could be water supply.
And rice was the shocker for me.
Rice.
Knowing how
particularly
much
brown rice,
arsenic is in brown rice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do the test.
Yeah.
If I didn't get the hair mineral analysis, there's no way. There's no way that I would have known it. So
yeah. I mean, that's why I say it's a whole lens for people. To your question though, to go back to that, with hair, so you're getting just in terms of looking at data, when you make a data decision, let's say you're looking at 500 people polled versus 5,000. We want to go with the 5,000. That's a better average, right? Okay. So we do the same thing with hair. Instead of a day's worth of data with blood, and you can continue to do blood testing, but this is a layer on top if it's your practice of something else you can offer people or do yourself. People can order this test on the website themselves, set up the consultation, choose a time that works for them. We try to make it accessible so that people can really this is one of my other missions. Like, I really want to empower people, feel like they have control over their own health and they don't have to go to someone else to really do it for them and kind of like ask permission.
Yeah.
That keeps a lot of people that are like very sovereign, in their choice, in their choices, like away from health. I think
it reminds me. Sorry to interrupt you. It reminds me of this joke that Bill Maher said, because all the pharmaceutical companies where they're like, "Ask your doctor if sex is good for you," and he goes, "Ask your doctor if getting off your ass is good for you." And it's so funny though, because it's a joke of, unfortunately, the sad truth where we have been trained for so long, probably since the 70s and 1980s. To literally ask your doctor for everything, as if your doctor is a god. Right. And many times when you go to a physician, they're overweight themselves, they're dealing with hypertension, like they're dealing with stress. Yeah. And it goes back to what I was telling you before, like I only want to get health advice from people that are healthy because they know how to do that for themselves. So back to you on this hair mineral and why it's so special for the hair. What I heard from you is it's a storage vehicle for like checking your levels over time. Blood might be a snapshot of today, but the heavy metals aren't found in the blood; they're found in the hair.
Yeah, after about 30 days, you won't see lead in the blood anymore, even if you had a acute exposure. After about like 32 days is what the research had showed. So that's one thing. Also, when you take even like a half inch of hair. And this is closest to the scalp or closest to the skin, wherever you're taking on the body. And we need a certain amount, and we describe all of that really clearly in the kit and online on the page, and people can see those details later. So I'll skip that. But the thing that's really important to understand is that when you look at even a half inch of hair, that has 1,000 times more data, and than a day's worth of data with blood. So when you finally measure that statistical average, and they measure it twice in the labs that we work with, you get a much clearer representation of what's actually happening. Mm-hmm. So that's huge. And then, I mean, there's just a lot of other advantages too. Well, cost being one of them. If we tried to do all of these different things, we'd have to pull a lot of blood, and some people aren't comfortable with that, and it would cost a lot of money because you would be looking at all these and you wouldn't have a ratio. You'd have to like try to do ratios yourself.
That sounds really complicated.
Yeah, it would be it would not be. No. Yeah. It would be a full-time job.
Okay.
So there's that. And then you wouldn't have the ratios to heavy metals, minerals to heavy metals too, which certain minerals can help push out certain heavy metals. And that's really the safest way to detox. Forget spending thousands and thousands on detox like chelation therapy, which can leave kind of like essentially holes where just more heavy metals can accumulate, and certainly mineral deficiencies in the process. And you have to do it in person, and it's IV, and it's just, I personally value my time too much to do that. And some would say it's ineffective. Other people would say it's dangerous. And yet that's kind of like the push when people are like found to have heavy metals if they're not doing this, which is a natural cycling of using minerals that are meant to displace in the body naturally things like cadmium and mercury and lead.
How much of this were we getting 500 to 1,000 years ago when we were eating animals, when we were living off the land? I mean, maybe there wasn't so much of an imbalance. How many people would you say? You mentioned 96% of people were low in magnesium. Was that
iodine?
Iodine, and I'm sure the magnesium levels up there as well.
Yeah.
So
80.
We know the food, and this isn't to like paint some dark story because obviously you're bringing solutions, but we have to talk about what's really going on.
The reality of current,
in the reality, like how many people would you say? I mean, I'm sure you looked at a lot of data sets. Mm-hmm. How many people have just general deficiencies of
Oh,
minerals? Maybe the top 4, the top 5.
Even, so we know this stat before I even cite it is on the low level because it's CDC. It's going to be conservative. 90% of people, they said, had 10 or more deficiencies.
Okay.
So that's enough.
That's basically almost everyone.
Yeah. So, and common deficiencies, things like boron. So we have boron in our upgraded memory. We also have boron now. Just one of our recent products we just put out, large dose, which is really good for. It's synonymous with intelligence. It's really good for testosterone because it reduces sex binding globulin, kind of a mouthful. So that's really key. That's another one. Manganese is another one that I've seen almost everyone be deficient in.
Mm-hmm.
Manganese is we have that as a separate product, which helps with recovery after workouts. It helps. It's actually a constituent in building. It's a raw material in building neural pathways. So important for recall, certainly, because you're actually building the highway. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, though, because it's something I was going to touch on earlier. So I'm so glad that you said this too, because it's a really key point when you talked about some time ago, like 1,000 years ago, even a few hundred years ago, we had a lot less pollutants in the atmosphere, in the air we breathe. And I know a lot of people point toward plastics, and those are certainly, but what's even more of a concern is heavy metals, because they stay in the body longer and they're more toxic. So mercury, for example, is incredibly toxic. Lead is even incredibly toxic, but mercury is 1,000 times more toxic on a gram per gram basis than lead. That's huge. So really small amounts of this stuff make us sick, and they are really hard to get out of the body. So when you have fewer mineral deficiencies, you have a reduced chance of accumulating heavy metals of any kind, mercury, lead, etc. But the atmosphere itself is roughly, it's like somewhere between 800 and 1,000 times more toxic than in recorded history, previous recorded.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why, that's the whole like food you're asking. Like, I know some people are going to ask about the food and like, is that enough? Can't you just eat well and like, just turn a blind eye? And I honestly, I wish that were the case. There wouldn't be a need for the company, but like life would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But this is why people get sick early. And this is why disease exists, because disease doesn't exist when the cells have the nutrients they need.
And when the cells have the nutrients they need, there's an environment of togetherness, homeostasis. I think about Dr. Zach Bush that was sitting in that chair a while back, and he was describing how cancer is really when cells stop communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. And so if that's what breeds cancer is loss of communication with cells, then I can also extrapolate that a loss of communication and a loss of balancing of the minerals could contribute to the loss of communication in the system. Obviously, it's just one compartment of the system, but wow, I mean, if 9 out of 10 people, I'm just like hitting this in real time, if 9 out of 10 of us are deficient in minerals, and we know that from Zach Bush's work and also many doctors' work, that cancer is a byproduct of a lack of communication of cells, I could definitely say that, and again, this is not medical advice, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm curious how you feel about this. Do you feel like people that have cancer, it's a byproduct of the minerals being deficient and the minerals not communicating and finding balance with each other?
Yeah, so it's really two things. It's definitely that, and it's heavy metals interfering. So those are the two biggest things at play. Again, this is not surprising when we think that, when we remember, that the planet is elemental, and we are a makeup of that periodic table that we learned in chemistry.
Well, you learned it in organic chemistry way more than the rest of us, but yes.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I loved organic chemistry. It's a beautiful world in and of itself, that physical chemistry, all of it. And what my main goal is to make this as approachable, as easy to understand for people as possible. Because, I mean, supplements work. People see that for themselves, but it's a lot beyond. It's a lot further than just taking supplements at work. It's like, what do you need? This is a tool for self-discovery and understanding your body better. And when you have more energy, you now can follow through and read those books that are on your shelf. And you can start to up level.
I want to go back to absorption because I feel like we could just unpack that a little bit more. So you have this nanotechnology that obviously you extrapolated from your time as an engineer and your schooling. So when I think about having a map as a test, that's the starting point, know thyself. So see where you are, take the snapshot, do the test. Then from there, smart supplementation that's based on real-time data. So you're not just like taking a bunch of supplements because you quote should.
Right.
You're actually taking them based off of your results. Then this nanotechnology comes in because we could be eating the foods that have the minerals in them. But if we have leaky gut and if there's things blocking us from absorbing natural minerals that are found in natural foods, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, though, is like, how does it actually get in there? I heard about nanotechnology from Ray Kurzweil, right? The singularity, like his work. Yeah. But with the nanotechnology that you're using, this is way different. Like, is it a particle? Is it a particle shape? Is it a particle size? How are the minerals that you're using getting into the system? You even said that if somebody didn't have a stomach, I'd want them to absorb this.
Yeah, so and they can.
What's the nano and how did you find that?
So, well, the process that we have is, and that's really well said, really, really good summary there. The process that we have allows us to take a larger particle size that's 5 to 8 times a red blood cell and make it, about 1,000 times smaller than a red blood cell, and make it also stable too. So you'll see, like, I'll stabilize a lot of our products with chloride because your body needs chloride. For example, you don't need the multiple different types of magnesium, one for this and one for that and one for this. Whenever you're using, our process, at least, I can't speak to anyone else's, but I know people have been taught that, and I tried to follow all those rules too before launching into this, and it didn't work in terms of really moving the needle. They'll say, this one will cross the blood-brain barrier is a common thing, and this one is good for muscle health, and this one's good for going to the bathroom because it doesn't absorb, so it has a laxative effect. So yeah, to answer your question straight away, particle size is what
size.
Size. Yeah, so size really matters when it comes to this, and in this case, smaller is much better, believe it or not. Women everywhere are vehemently disagreeing. But yeah,
there's a symbol hit we put in there.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the magic of it, though. When you start to feel it when you take our upgraded magnesium, if you take the liquid especially, you start to feel it like so quickly. So you can have a foot cramp and it's gone in 3 minutes. Like, good luck with doing that any other way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the way to think about it. And if to give people a different visual, it's like, imagine you have your yard. Maybe it's the yard you grew up in, the yard you have now, and you have a beach ball in the yard. That fits well. The ball fits in the yard easily. But if you were to take the yard and try to put it in the ball, that doesn't work. You have to take pieces of the yard and put it in the ball. So now the ball is the red blood cell. And we're taking fragments of the yard, which are, minerals, and we're getting that into the red blood cell by making them tiny, and, it's just doing what the body, it's getting the minerals into a state where the body would already get them to this place if they went through the digestive system. So the other thing I'll say on a bunch of different forms, because I know people have been taught that for forever and ever now, for the last 10 years, really. And what I'll say is that just know that when you eat, a certain food that has magnesium in it, for example, your body deals with magnesium in that food, and it doesn't go, oh, you got to give me 3 a day because I'm going to power the brain later. It's like, no, it takes that, and then it can, it digests it, and then you absorb the magnesium into the red blood cells, and you distribute it throughout the body. And of course, then it's crossed the blood-brain barrier, and it's useful everywhere. So that's the way to look at it. I hope that wasn't too technical for some people. I think it's a great question, and yeah.
I hear you so loud and clear on that. And I go back to your analogy because I love analogies, and I think we all get them because they're just, you have a deep science background, but so many people are like in a hurry. They want to know like the quick 5 things. But I'll say this, like I've always had this really maybe misunderstanding that you can clear up for me when it comes to transdermal spray magnesium versus sublingual. So is one better than the other, or does it not matter? Like, what's the differentiation there?
Yeah, definitely oral is better. I think the transdermal should be thought of as supplementing a supplement. And that is so there's a real limit to how much you can take in, and it's local. And then there's issues of I'm not sure what the absorption rate you can say is through the skin. I don't know, and I imagine it would vary from person to person, but certainly putting it on the inside is a good place to start, I would think. Is like,
because if it was transdermal that was most successful, you would find that you would use it.
I would just do that. Yeah. Now we could take our technology and put it into a cream and do that. And still it would be less effective as taking it internally.
Yeah.
There's still just layers of things.
And you wouldn't want to do the needle because it would get old to do like IM injections of magnesium. That's not really feasible.
Totally. And really not necessary with ours either. It's just IV or IM, wouldn't even be needed. We get old quickly though.
Yeah.
Certainly. So,
wow. We've covered so much ground, man. And just knowing my own results, I'm going to be taking a supplementation. It's a binder. I forgot the name of it, but it's on order. What's the binder that I'm using to remove the arsenic safely?
Oh yeah. Bind probably.
The Bind product. So not only is this a map, it's also a way to get the heavy metals, the arsenic for me safely. That's the key, like safely out of the body. Because if you just go for it, and I'm curious for fasting too, like you really have run the gamut on fasting. You've done a 3-day fast, 5-day fast, 11-day fast. When we do 3, 5, or 11, like these longer fasts, there's certain things that we should be supplementing with. And I'm curious, when we supplement, does the body naturally start to slowly and safely remove these heavy metals as well? Or do we need the binders when we do a fast? How does that work, that whole circle?
I like doing a binder in the evening. It's a really good question.
Okay.
I like doing a binder. I also like it just in general because fasting is one of the coolest things. Is imagine this is your gut if people are watching this on video, and I'm putting my hands together, my fingers together, so that they can hold water essentially. Like imagine that as the microscope of your gut lining. When you're not eating, you give your body, it's self-care, it's rest.
Yeah.
So the body starts to heal itself. And when you allow the body to heal the gut, then, and I'm writing a book on this, about how to do all of this, and a lot of different takeaways I've figured out around minerals, and also fasting and not eating, and the problem with blissful foods, all sorts of things. But when we get back to this point of now our intestines are healthy and our whole digestive tract is really healed, we eliminate toxins, including heavy metals, more easily. So that's a huge one.
Cool. So we can stack the binder safely on top of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But also just getting into fasting, which I know you have some literature that we're going to link as well. I think you've done a talk or a program. I know you've done blog posts on fasting as well.
Yeah.
We've had a couple experts on the show about fasting, but
YouTube, upgraded formulas.
Great.
If people type upgraded formulas into YouTube, they'll see, I've got a couple of videos that I've done where I'm just like in the moment, like, hey, it's day 3. And I'm just like, and then by day 5, then day 5 or day 8 or day 11, whatever I shot, it's like I took my shirt off, and it's like you can see the fat loss difference too.
Yeah.
So there were cool benefits like that too. And then you get hormone regulation and upregulation, which is nice. Just about rebalancing there, and you start to see like, wow, I'm not reaching. When bliss point foods are off the table, and intermittent fasting will teach you this too, then you realize you're like, I don't really want to eat broccoli right now, or I don't really want to eat cabbage or steak, but I would like to eat that bar over there that I know is like salty and fatty, and and you realize, oh, I'm not actually hungry, and then you realize on longer fasts how we self-soothe with food. And that was super interesting. I have a lot of takeaways for people there.
Cool. Well, the ground we covered is immense, and obviously we're like scratching the tip of the iceberg. So below the surface of the water is so much more, but you can really only access the surface of the water by doing the test. I mean, that's the starting place. Whether you're a practitioner, whether you're an enthusiast, whether you're somebody on a health journey like myself, you got to start with the map first. So thank you for coming on the show. And with all the shows you've been on, because you've been on quite a lot of shows, what's something that someone hasn't brought forth to you? Like, what's a question that you've always wanted to answer? Maybe something about a myth or something that people generally get wrong about minerals. Like, what's something that you really want people to know about minerals and specifically hair mineral testing and the actions, the inspired actions that come after the testing?
Yeah, really, wow, great question. One would be that you don't really have a shot at fixing thyroid function until you give your body the minerals you need for your adrenals, and also your thyroid. Like, that is key. And then to do that, aside from minerals, you need light. You need light in the morning. We talked about this briefly, you and I.
We stood in the sun after the cold tank. It was awesome.
It was glorious.
I was feeling medicated just from like being in the sun, shivering from ice cold water. Yeah.
I think I'm just now returning to normal.
Okay, you're warmed up now.
Yeah, I'm good now. It's great. I feel great. But yeah, that combination of like morning sun, actually helps. It's triggering the pituitary to go like, okay, time to produce hormones, and it's anterior pituitary hormone that's produced, and you're that T3, T4 that is, and so that's really, really key. But you can't. I don't want to say can't. You have to have the minerals to have the hormones in adequate supply, demand, consistency, and if you don't, then you'll have you'll have weight gain, you'll have hair loss, you'll have all the things outwardly that we don't like, and then internally you'll have malaise, you'll have low energy, you'll have fatigue, you'll have brain fog, you'll have poor sleep rhythms. So any physical symptom is going to be in part dictated by this world of minerals, because it's the elemental world that we're built of.
We are nature. It's so easy to forget that. So thank you for the reminder. Thank you for all the knowledge you've shared. I feel like I was talking to a scientist, which you are. And thank you for the discount too. It's wellnessforce.com/upgraded. We have a great discount that you gave to our audience. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
Also, I want to say, like, I'm going to be doing this process for myself. So you guys can learn with me. So wellnessforce.com/upgraded. And as we say goodbye, this world that you've been in for so long of science, there's also emotional intelligence here too. So at the intersection of like all your education, your science, your personal story, overcoming, helping people, how do you see wellness? What do you define as wellness? What does that mean when Barton lives well?
Love it. I would say when you have the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual bandwidth to achieve what you want to achieve. And sometimes that is reading a book. Sometimes that is going on a run. Sometimes that is having the bandwidth to sit through a conversation that's difficult. to show up in every aspect of life that you want to show up in. It comes back to that energy equation. Yeah.
We can't have the energy if we don't have the minerals.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. So, man, it's been a pleasure to get to know you. I really thank you
Same,
for the way that you've guided me through this test. And I know that your team can take care of anyone that's interested. So
For sure.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. And until Barton and I see you again.